No one ever told you this, but I'll be direct with you. People don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they are disciplined in the wrong things. It sounds strange, almost offensive, but it's the purest truth. Many people have routine, effort, desire, but they keep repeating habits that destroy any chance of victory. And here's the point no one talks about. There's no victory without aligning mind, identity, and self-discipline. Today you will see this in a way no one has ever shown you. Maybe you felt this on your skin. Working hard, pushing yourself, changing some things, and still, life looks exactly the same. It's frustrating, I know. But there's an invisible reason almost no one realizes. You're trying to win with the same mindset that made you lose. It's like trying to install new software on an outdated system. It doesn't work. And while the winner identity doesn't change, nothing changes. That's what separates those who try from those who transform. And let's be honest, you already know motivation doesn't last. In fact, it disappears exactly when you need it the most. That's why many live in an eternal cycle of restarts, promises, and frustration. But there is another path, a much faster one, that almost no one uses. A path that depends less on emotion and more on relentless consistency. And when you understand this, your life will leave the attempt mode and enter the inevitable victory mode. The most counterintuitive part is that winning doesn't require more effort. It requires effort in the right place. It requires trading too many goals for method, too many expectations for presence, too much anxiety for clarity. When someone activates their high-performance mindset, the game flips. The world stays difficult, but you become stronger. And what once seemed impossible starts becoming routine. Today you will feel this shift that changes destinies. And before we continue, I want you to understand something deep. There's a version of you already ready to win, disciplined to win, prepared to win, but you still haven't given it room to appear. This video is the meeting with that version, a meeting that will poke old wounds, break comfortable beliefs, but also ignite something powerful inside you. If you're ready for that, then take a breath, because the transformation begins now. The path of a true winner never begins with a red carpet. It begins with loose gravel, wind in the face, and that feeling that the world is testing every step. Those watching from the outside think it's luck, talent, or privilege, but those living inside know it's pure self-discipline. It's waking up on the day everything hurts and still moving, because a winner identity speaks louder within. And it's exactly in that discomfort that the mental toughness, separating the ones who try from the ones who arrive, is born. He learns early that climbing mountains is not about speed, but about relentless consistency. It's continuing even when nothing seems to change, even when no one applauds, even when progress feels invisible. The high-performance mindset doesn't appear when everything is working. It appears when everything seems to fail, and he insists anyway. It's that quiet, humble, stubborn movement that builds great destinies. And slowly, he realizes that each hard step creates space for the next strong one. The winner knows he will stumble over stones no one warned him about, and face climbs no one prepared him for. But he understands that this is exactly when his self-discipline is tested. He doesn't expect the path to be paved. He paves it. He doesn't wait for motivation. He creates rhythm. And when his legs shake, he adjusts his breath and keeps going, because the winner identity does not allow anything else. Some days the road seems to mock him, as if asking, "Are you sure you want to continue?" And he replies with actions, not words. The high-performance mindset makes him see each difficulty as fuel, not excuse. It's in mental toughness that he finds the strength to turn doubt into movement. And little by little, he understands that winning is less about talent and more about intelligent insistence. The path is hard because it needs to be. If it were easy, it wouldn't shape anyone. He realizes the toughest miles strengthen emotional muscles, building relentless consistency. That's where character forms, where confidence grows, where the winner identity solidifies. And without noticing, he becomes someone who doesn't break with storms, only adjusts the pace and continues. The winner also understands that loneliness is part of the journey. There won't always be an audience. Often, there will be silence. And that silence is precious, because it reveals who actually has mental toughness and who only like the idea of winning. In silence, he organizes battles, corrects mistakes, and reinforces his self-discipline. And once more, he keeps walking. He also discovers that the path is not only physical but mental. Some days the internal dialogue is heavier than any climb. But that's when the high-performance mindset shines. He chooses to speak to himself like a mentor, not a saboteur. He chooses words that strengthen identity, not weaken it. And so, he wins invisible battles no one sees, but that define who he is becoming. Throughout the road, he realizes every obstacle is an invitation to evolve. It's not about winning always, but learning always. This mental toughness makes him see each fall as a natural part of the process. He dusts himself off, breathes deeply, and moves on. Because the winner identity doesn't break with stumbles, it strengthens through them. When he looks back, he doesn't see gold, glory, or recognition. He sees war marks telling stories of self-discipline. Marks proving he insisted when others quit. Marks showing the hard path didn't destroy him. It shaped him. And this becomes his greatest source of pride, because now he understands the real value of each step. The winner's path also brings moments of doubt, and in those moments, relentless consistency becomes his shield. He doesn't depend on emotional strength. He depends on the commitment he made with himself. Doesn't matter if he's motivated or not. He acts, because the high-performance mindset turns action into habit, habit into destiny, destiny into victory. He knows there are no shortcuts. Everyone who tries to cut corners pays the price later. So he walks the right way, even if slower. The winner doesn't chase easy shine. He builds his own light. And in that daily construction, his mental toughness solidifies permanently. Each stage becomes part of who he is. And interestingly, over time he begins to enjoy the hard path. Not because he's a masochist, but because he realizes it is where he grows. Every obstacle becomes opportunity. Every climb becomes training. Every stone becomes a teacher. Self-discipline becomes natural, almost automatic. And when that happens, he realizes he has changed inside. He remembers where he came from, and that keeps him humble, firm, and aware. Knowing his origin strengthens his winner identity, because it shows the contrast between who he was and who he is becoming. He understands the hard journey makes sense precisely because the destination is worth it. And this awareness keeps him moving. When he sees others quitting halfway, he understands something powerful. The difference is not talent, it's relentless consistency. Everyone wants extraordinary results, but few want to repeat the basics every day. He repeats. He stays firm. He honors the process. And because of that, growth becomes inevitable. And many times, he laughs alone at life's irony. What once seemed impossible is now routine. The high-performance mindset turned pain into discipline, fear into strength. He surprises himself with his evolution, and that's the magic of mental toughness. Winning is no longer a destination. It has become identity. And as he keeps walking, he already feels the next lesson calling, because he knows the journey doesn't end here. Each hard step prepares him for an even greater challenge, and he's ready. The road continues, and with it, a new stage awaits. One that brings him even closer to what he is seeking. He quickly realizes that winning isn't an isolated act. It's an entire environment created around himself. Mental toughness grows when he chooses to surround himself with people who live in the rhythm of victory. It's like tuning an instrument. By staying close to those with a high-performance mindset, his own frequency adjusts. Self-discipline becomes more natural, almost contagious. And slowly, he understands that a winner's mentality is built, not inherited. High performance is not about being at your peak all the time, but about functioning well even on bad days. He learns that winners act even when inspiration is gone, and that is what creates relentless consistency. A true competitor doesn't ask if he feels motivated. He asks what needs to be done now. And that simple practicality forms a strong winner identity. Extraordinary results come from extraordinarily simple routines. Living around complacent people is like moving with the handbrake on. Nothing flows. But living around high-performance individuals is like running downhill. Everything accelerates. He feels the immediate impact when he changes his environment, as if his mind opens space for bigger ideas. Mental toughness strengthens when no one around accepts excuses, and he begins adapting to the group's high standard, gaining mental speed and clarity. He also notices that the environment defines what is acceptable. While some celebrate small victories, high performers celebrate repetition and consistency. That changes everything. His self-discipline grows because now there is a collective standard. He sees himself being pulled upward by the examples around him. And when he realizes this, he understands that the winner identity is built through mirroring. Being around strong people makes him question his own limits. He sees someone waking up earlier, training harder, producing in silence, and something inside him awakens. This healthy comparison sparks an internal fire, a relentless consistency that keeps him from relaxing too much. Mental toughness gains strength when he realizes he could be delivering more. And without noticing, he begins operating on another level. He discovers that high-performance people talk very little about problems and a lot about solutions. This changes his way of thinking. He begins to notice that the way he speaks to himself shapes his movement. Strong thoughts generate strong actions, and that forms the base of the high-performance mindset. Over time, he abandons victimhood and takes the position of protagonist. And that simple act shifts his entire energy. Being in a high-performance environment requires humility. He realizes someone will always be better at something, and that's great, because instead of shrinking, he learns. Instead of feeling envy, he observes. He understands that every person around him can be a disguised mentor, and when he adopts this viewpoint, self-discipline becomes a natural reflection of this expansion. Every conversation becomes an insight, every exchange a lesson, and it doesn't take long for him to understand that high performance is not extreme intensity all the time, but consistency with purpose. He learns that burning out quickly is not a strategy. Relentless consistency is. So he adjusts the pace, controls the ego, and learns to sustain long-term growth. Mental toughness becomes maturity, knowing when to accelerate and when to recover. This creates longevity, not just momentary effort. Over time, he sees that high performers don't wait for praise. They're more concerned with improving than appearing. And this detachment brings peace, focus, and clarity. He learns to cut distractions, reduce noise, and prioritize what truly matters. The high-performance mindset makes him trade applause for progress, and that shift transforms his winner identity. He notices that high-performance people share a common trait. They are obsessed with their own standards. They don't compete with others. They compete with themselves. He adopts this behavior, creating personal metrics, evolution rituals, and weekly reviews. This simple habit creates nearly unbreakable self-discipline. He starts measuring what he does, adjusting what fails, and reinforcing what works. The high-performance environment also teaches him to accept pressure as a natural part of the journey. He realizes pressure isn't the enemy, it's an invitation to grow. Strong people use pressure as a springboard, not a burden. And that shapes his mental toughness even further. Whenever something feels bigger than him, he breathes deeply and remembers it's the exact challenge, demanding a new version of him. He begins to understand that conversations change when he's around people who want to grow. Topics like discipline, goals, purpose, and evolution become natural. He stops talking about people and starts talking about projects. And that directly elevates his high-performance mindset. The level of conversation pulls the level of life. He becomes selective with who enters and who leaves his routine, and that raises his standards. And of course, he learns that high performance involves treating the body as a tool of victory. He understands that winners eat better, sleep better, train better. He starts investing in habits like strength training, running, and daily reading. Small actions done with relentless consistency create big results. And his self-discipline grows because there is finally coherence between what he wants and what he does. He discovers that high performance is not about living at the extreme. It's about living above average. And that requires difficult but intelligent choices. He learns to say no to what drains his energy, focus, and identity. That no strengthens him. Mental toughness grows exactly in these moments of internal confrontation. And this creates space for the winner identity to flourish. And when he looks around, he realizes something changed. He is no longer part of a common group. He has become part of a rare one. People who think big, act big, and live big. And that realization creates a powerful internal loop, because the next step begins calling him. After understanding how to think and live in high performance, he realizes there is something even bigger waiting for him next. He discovers early that goals are easy to love, but hard to sustain. They look brilliant on paper, motivating on day one, and seductive in imagination, but alone, they change nothing. What truly transforms is the method, that repeated sequence, sometimes boring, but infallibly powerful. Self-discipline grows when he focuses on the process, not the applause. And this builds a stable winner identity, immune to initial frustration. He realizes that goals depend on emotion, while methods depend on relentless consistency. That's why when emotion fades, and it always does, the method remains. Those who depend on motivation feel constant highs and lows. Those who depend on method grow in a straight line. This demands mental toughness, because the method is a daily invitation to do what needs to be done, even without desire. With time, he understands that goals are results, but method is identity. A person with a high-performance mindset doesn't just ask, "Where do I want to go?" but, "Who do I need to become to get there?" This shift in focus is powerful because it replaces anxiety with control. He masters the process leading to the destination, not the destination itself. And this makes everything flow more naturally, with less pressure. He learns that every method works like a track. Just follow it to reach the right place. For example, if he wants to improve his physique, the method is training strength 3 times a week, maintaining a clean diet, and sleeping well, not imagining a new body in the mirror. If he wants financial growth, the method is investing with relentless consistency, studying assets, and controlling expenses. Method eliminates guesswork. He begins seeing method as a system that saves mental energy. While goals keep him thinking about the future, the method keeps him focused on the now, where it matters. This perspective simplifies life. Self-discipline grows because what he must do becomes clear. And clarity is powerful fuel for someone building a solid winner identity. Little by little, he realizes a hard truth. People who love goals too much are usually terrible at process. They dream high but act low. He doesn't want that. He wants to stand out. So he replaces wishes with practices, dreams with routines, promises with deliveries. This transforms his mental toughness, because learning to honor his own word strengthens emotional structure. He notices that goals depend on dates, but methods depend on habits, and habits build life. This insight changes everything. He begins organizing his mornings with simple rituals: reading, training, reviewing plans, deep focus. Small actions done with relentless consistency. And when stacked, they produce results that goals alone could never create. He also understands that goals can deceive. They can look big when, in truth, they are shallow. But methods don't lie. If he follows the method, he improves. If he doesn't improve. It's that simple. This simplicity strengthens him because it removes illusion and brings responsibility. He stops thinking like a dreamer and starts acting like someone who owns his destiny. The most interesting part is that when he focuses on method, stress decreases. There's no longer the anxious pressure of, "I need to get there fast." There's only one commitment: I need to do what must be done today. This calms the mind, organizes the spirit, and strengthens mental toughness. His life becomes lighter because now there is direction, rhythm, and daily purpose. He realizes that goals can be broken by emotional storms, but method keeps him firm. Method doesn't depend on mood, weather, or motivation. It is almost automatic, like brushing teeth. And this automation gives birth to the high-performance mindset, doing automatically what most people don't even do with effort. That creates true competitive advantage. He understands that method creates invisible progress. It's like placing 1 brick per day. Outsiders don't see anything at first, but he who lays the bricks knows the wall is growing. This perspective strengthens self-discipline because he learns to trust accumulation. He trusts that relentless consistency generates inevitable results. And that makes him calmer about the future. When he compares his old self to his current one, he realizes that goals were disguised distractions. They created a sense of movement without generating movement. But method, that changes everything. Method turns intention into action, action into habit, habit into identity. And when identity changes, everything else changes too. This is how the winner identity is built. He also learns that method creates predictability. If he applies the method, he arrives. If he doesn't, he doesn't. This clarity eliminates excuses. He sees that successful people aren't magical, they are methodical, and that inspires him. He starts modeling people he admires, studying how they work, train, study, and live. And he replicates the systems that work. Naturally, he realizes that goals begin to achieve themselves. Because when someone has method, the destination stops being an accident and becomes an obvious consequence. Anxiety disappears, focus grows, and mental toughness strengthens. The method becomes so strong that when he fails, he feels the absence and quickly returns. This fast return is what separates the average from the unstoppable. And as he deepens this lifestyle, he notices something curious. The method prepares him to release the past and look ahead with maturity. Each day of process builds confidence, and this confidence creates space for the next big breakthrough. The next topic begins calling him, as if something inside knows that there is still a silent weight waiting to be left behind. He realizes that one of the hardest battles isn't in the body or in the routine, but in the mind. The past has a strange way of trying to pull a person backward, as if it wants to remind them of who they were, not who they are becoming. And this is where mental toughness plays an essential role. The ability to look back without staying stuck there is one of the greatest traits of the winner identity. Overcoming the past requires emotional self-discipline. He understands that reliving old pains is like carrying a backpack full of stones on a steep climb. Each negative memory adds weight. Each regret, an extra sack. Each old guilt, a concrete block. The high-performance mindset teaches that the only way to climb that mountain is to drop the baggage. He discovers that abandoning the past is not irresponsibility. It is emotional intelligence. The truth is that every winner learns to differentiate two things: remembering and reliving. Remembering is learning. Reliving is suffering. He realizes that living in the past is like watching the same bad movie every day, hoping the ending will change. It doesn't. Self-discipline here appears as the daily decision to focus on the now. The present is the only force capable of shaping the future. He notices that people who fail have a pattern. They talk too much about what went wrong. They repeat old stories as if they were identity badges. But he decides to break that cycle. The winner identity does not accept living through painful recollections. He learns to tell new stories, writing chapters based not on scars, but on daily progress, powered by relentless consistency. When he looks back, he also recognizes that some mistakes were necessary, and that brings peace. He realizes that certain falls taught him what no book could teach. This shift in perspective strengthens his mental toughness. He stops blaming himself for not knowing what he had no way of knowing. Growth requires initial ignorance. Accepting that frees him to move forward lighter. And it doesn't take long for him to understand that forgiving his own past is an act of courage, not weakness. He learns to look at old versions of himself with compassion, not judgment. Every mistake represented the best he could do at that moment. And that understanding strengthens his high-performance mindset because it connects him with a deep sense of humanity and evolution. Overcoming the past is also about closing cycles that no longer make sense. He realizes that old friendships, outdated habits, and destructive rituals cannot walk with someone who is growing. Emotional self-discipline means saying no to what no longer serves him, even if it hurts, even if there is attachment. It is the pain of pruning that allows the tree to grow. He accepts this with growing maturity. He also discovers something valuable. Talking less about old wounds reduces their power. The less he verbalizes traumas, the freer he becomes. He understands that repeating the same story does not bring healing. It brings imprisonment. With relentless consistency, he chooses to replace narratives of pain with narratives of construction. Slowly, his winner identity becomes marked by possibilities, not past suffering. Overcoming the past doesn't mean ignoring it, but placing it where it belongs. He learns to use painful memories as fuel, not chains. They become references for better decisions. Each memory becomes a reminder of where he doesn't want to return. And this strengthens his high-performance mindset because it gives direction and clarity. The past stops being a ghost and becomes a teacher. At times, he notices that the past tries to return not by force but by habit. The mind likes repeating familiar patterns. But this is where self-discipline enters, the conscious act of redirecting thoughts. He learns to replace painful memories with visions of the future. Whenever an old thought appears, he asks, "Does this help me move forward?" If the answer is no, he lets it go. He realizes that he cannot build a future while holding on to resentment. Resentment drains mental energy, steals focus, and weakens mental toughness. Forgiving those who hurt him isn't about agreeing with what they did. It's about reclaiming his own power. When he releases grudges, he feels life flowing lighter, and that lightness creates room for real progress. He also discovers that the past is not a place to live. It's just a place to visit briefly when necessary. The present is where action happens. The future is where the reward lives. This view, aligned with the high-performance mindset, makes him realize that living in the past is wasting useful energy. And energy is the fuel of someone building something great with relentless consistency. Overcoming the past is, at its core, a process of rewriting one's own narrative. He sees that he can choose the words, the tone, the meaning. What used to be trauma, he transforms into lesson. What used to be defeat becomes preparation. This change in interpretation changes everything. His winner identity strengthens because now he consciously directs his own story. As he advances, he notices that releasing the past expands his ability to visualize the future. The mind gains space for new ideas, new projects, new versions of himself. He understands it's not just about abandoning the old, but creating space for the new. This expansion reinforces his self-discipline because now there's a clear reason to act in the present. And while freeing himself from old shadows, he feels something new forming inside him, a readiness to understand failure differently, as if the journey is saying, now that you let go of the weight, you're ready to understand the power of failure. And that awareness begins opening the door to the next essential lesson every winner must master. He discovers that failure was never an enemy. It was a silent coach that had always been there, shaping his mental toughness while he thought he was just getting hurt. Every fall taught him something victory would never dare to teach. And with time, his self-discipline grew because he realized failure wasn't a sign of incapability, but of effort. It is through this process that his winner identity takes real form. He realizes that no one learns to walk without falling, and no one learns to win without failing. Failure exposes flaws in the method, reveals limiting beliefs, and demands internal honesty. It's uncomfortable, but transformative. He understands each mistake is a map pointing to the next step. And this high-performance mindset makes him see every stumble not as a barrier but as direction. Relentless consistency comes from this understanding. Looking at his own journey, he sees that the most painful moments were the ones that developed his emotional strength the most. He learned to handle frustration without collapsing, to correct routes without drama, and to restart with more wisdom than before. That deeply strengthens his mental toughness. Winners don't run from failure. They study it, understand it, and use it as fuel. That builds maturity, not fear. He realizes that failures reveal something victories hide, the truth about himself. They show whether his self-discipline is real or just temporary enthusiasm. They show whether his winner identity is solid or still fragile. And by facing those truths, he grows. Failure becomes a brutal but necessary mirror. He learns to look at it without turning away, and that shapes his inner strength permanently. With time, he begins seeing failure as a private teacher. Each one brings a unique lesson: patience, humility, planning, resilience. He notices no one grows strong by escaping difficulties. Strength comes from facing them. This high-performance mindset makes him accept bigger challenges, knowing that even if he falls, he will rise better than before. And that brings him closer to mastery. He understands true confidence is born only when someone goes through fire and remains standing. Failure made him doubt, rethink, and rebuild himself. And in rebuilding, relentless consistency was born. He no longer avoids falling. He avoids not trying. This mental shift is powerful. Now, when something goes wrong, he thinks, "Great, this will teach me something I don't know yet." And it always does. He realizes most people quit too early, because they interpret failure as identity, not as event. But he knows the difference. He failed, but he is not a failure. He fell, but he did not stay down. Self-discipline reminds him every day that the story ends only when he decides to stop. And since he doesn't stop, growth becomes inevitable. That is the winner's pattern. He remembers that many of the greatest companies, athletes, and geniuses failed miserably before rising. Edison burned through thousands of filaments before he found the right one. Jordan was cut from the team as a teenager. Jobs was fired from his own company. These examples feed his high-performance mindset. The difference between them and the rest of the world? Relentless consistency. They never gave up. Neither will he. He realizes frequent failure means he is testing, experimenting, daring. People who never fail are people who never try anything new. And he doesn't want a small life with no risks and no expansion. So he embraces failure as a natural part of evolution. Every mistake opens a door. Every door reveals something new about him. This curiosity shapes his mature and conscious winner identity. Looking back, he understands that if he had succeeded at everything on the first attempt, he would be weak. Quick wins don't teach humility, precision, or focus. Failure taught all that and more. It taught recalibration. It taught patience. It taught persistence. Now each future victory will be solid, built on the hard foundations of reality, and that builds unbreakable strength. He realizes accumulated failures create accumulated intelligence. Each mistake sharpens, refines, and improves his decisions. He begins making more strategic decisions, more assertive choices, and more conscious movements. The high-performance mindset is formed by learning from each slip. This makes him more prepared than anyone who never fell. The learning is deep because it is lived. Little by little, he understands failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. This perception completely changes his internal energy. He no longer judges himself. He no longer diminishes himself. He simply observes, adjusts, and continues. Self-discipline keeps him moving even when he isn't winning. And that resilience creates a buildup of evolution so big that eventually it explodes into real results. He realizes failure sharpens intuition. Those who fail often learn to sense the path ahead, avoiding future traps. He begins trusting himself more, not out of arrogance, but out of real experience. His mental toughness grows because he knows he survived storms worse than the ones he fears today. That creates courage. Courage creates movement. Movement creates destiny. And the more he advances, the more he sees that every defeat was preparing him for something bigger. He feels that each failure was just an adjustment, a filter, a preparation for the right moment. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was meaningless. Everything became raw material for his evolution. The final winner identity is born from the accumulation of these small falls that turn into great leaps. And now, as he observes this powerful internal construction, he feels ready for something deeper, understanding that winning isn't just about external achievements, but about balanced living, purpose, and presence. And that new understanding starts calling him, as if the next topic is opening a doorway to a fuller vision of what it really means to be a winner. He realizes that winning isn't just about achieving more, but about achieving in a way that makes sense. The high-performance mindset teaches that without balance, any victory becomes a burden. A person may reach something great and still feel a strange emptiness, as if they forgot to bring their soul along the journey. For him, that's not enough. The winner identity requires purpose, and purpose requires presence. He learns that financial prosperity is important, but it isn't everything. Having money but losing peace is spiritual bankruptcy. Achieving success but losing family is a silent kind of defeat. He understands that a true winner balances responsibilities: work, health, faith, relationships, and internal growth. Self-discipline here isn't just doing. It's knowing where not to act. This is deep emotional maturity. Balance is not about dividing everything equally, but about giving each area what it deserves. He realizes some days demand more work, others demand rest, and others demand reconnection with loved ones. Mental toughness appears in the ability not to neglect what is essential. He understands that life is a board with sensitive pieces, and every decision affects the whole. This understanding makes him more conscious. He discovers that high-performance people find time to train, work, grow, and love because they remove excess. It's not about having 24 perfect hours. It's about refusing what drains energy. He begins cutting distractions, reducing noise, and strengthening rituals that keep him aligned. Relentless consistency in small daily choices brings a powerful peace, almost silent, but decisive. He also realizes that balance without purpose becomes empty routine. So he seeks something bigger than professional goals. He starts asking himself, why am I doing this? This simple question shifts his internal axis. Purpose acts as an emotional compass, guiding decisions and strengthening self-discipline. Because when someone knows the why, the how becomes obvious. Throughout the journey, he feels that living without purpose is like running on a treadmill, exhaustive, yet leading nowhere. Purpose is a road, not a treadmill. He learns that purpose isn't something magical falling from the sky. It is built in practice. The high-performance mindset reveals that purpose is discovered when he pays attention to what moves him, what bothers him, and what gives meaning to his effort. He begins listening to his intuition more. He realizes purpose is not a destination, but an expanding process. At each stage of life, purpose gains new colors and depths, and that keeps his winner identity in motion. He sees that purpose evolves as he evolves. This removes the pressure to figure everything out now. The journey becomes lighter, more fluid, more natural, and much more truthful. Balance also teaches him to value meaningful relationships. He realizes there's no point in winning alone. Having someone to share victories multiplies joy and reduces weight. Mental toughness here appears as the ability to love with security, without losing oneself in the process. He understands that true strength also knows how to be vulnerable, and that doesn't diminish the winner, it elevates him. He realizes that faith, whether spiritual, philosophical, or emotional, is one of the greatest sources of alignment. He finds strength in something bigger than himself, something that keeps him grounded when everything seems to fall apart. This creates internal stability that supports his self-discipline. The winner knows he doesn't win only with strong arms, but with deep roots. And that changes everything. Balance requires difficult choices. He learns to say no to opportunities that steal his time, and yes, to what brings him closer to who he wants to be. The high-performance mindset helps filter invitations, impulses, and desires. He stops living to please and starts living to evolve. This internal reorganization creates a clearer life, with less noise and more direction. He also realizes that purpose without pleasure becomes obligation, and pleasure without purpose becomes dispersion. So he seeks to unite the two. He finds joy in growing, pleasure in learning, and satisfaction in contributing. This virtuous cycle creates natural relentless consistency, almost effortless. His winner identity blooms when he finds the point where usefulness and happiness meet. With time, he understands balance is not avoiding chaos, but returning to center quickly. This requires mental toughness. He learns to breathe deeply, reorganize his mind, and regain control when life tries to pull him in many directions. Being balanced does not mean being perfect, it means being resilient. And that resilience creates softness and power at the same time. He notices that when he lives aligned with purpose, life seems to conspire in his favor. Opportunities appear, doors open, the right people show up. It's not magic, it's coherence. Self-discipline keeps him on the path, and the right energy attracts the next level. He feels that he is finally living, not just existing, and that permanently strengthens his high-performance mindset. He realizes that working hard is part of the process, but living deeply is part of the victory. He finds pleasure in simple things, a warm coffee, a sunset, a hug, a good conversation. These things recharge his soul, so he can continue growing. He understands rest is not weakness, it's strategy. And this kind of perception separates those who break on the path from those who reach the destination whole. And as he lives this harmony between growth and purpose, he begins seeing the journey more broadly. He realizes balance doesn't pull him away from victory, it brings him closer. And he understands that everything he learned so far prepares the ground for something even bigger, the art of uniting discipline, identity, and vision into a single movement. It's as if the next step is calling him, ready to transform everything that comes next. Now that you've come this far, there's a question only you can answer. Will you keep living the way you always lived, or will you finally act like someone who was born to win? Because no matter how much you learn today, if you don't apply it, nothing changes. Victory doesn't come to those who know. It comes to those who act. And you've already proved you're ready to go further, because those who reach the end are rarely ordinary. This already shows your winner identity asking for space. Think with me. What can you change today, not tomorrow? What do you need to eliminate, assume, or start immediately? Because life rewards those who move, not those who think about moving. Relentless consistency is exactly that. Small actions that, when added up, transform entire destinies. You've seen people turn their lives around. You've seen people rise from zero. The only difference between them and you is the decision you make now. So I challenge you. What will be your first action when this video ends? Will you adjust your method? Cut distractions? Train? Study? Finally embrace the level of discipline you always knew you were capable of? It doesn't matter which choice you make, as long as it's today. Winners don't wait for the right moment. They create the right moment with self-discipline, mental toughness, and immediate action. And before you go, let me tell you something important. I want you here with me. I want you evolving, growing, expanding this new mindset we started activating together. Because no one builds a life of high performance alone. So if this video awakened something in you, and I know it did, click subscribe now and turn on all notifications. Don't leave it for later. Your next level is one click away.